And once again, thank you everyone for being here. Today we're doing the Fortnite Meet a Pro. We have here a pro collegiate player, Egan Bosch. He'll be talking and telling us more about Fortnite and his experience in the competitive scene. Thanks for joining us on this awesome Friday. The program, Epic Pathway Esports, is set to start on Monday.
I'm fired up. I'm fired up. Egan here. We got a pro in the house. We got our director of academic esports in the house. We got the chat is just blowing up. I see already. We got a lot of participants. My name is Alan Satomer. I'm the CEO of Mastery Coding. I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. As you know, Rich Conti is our main man who a lot of you are interacting with. And then, of course, today's star of the show is Mr. Egan Bosch. So Richie, let's head on in, man.
Yeah, let's get started. And once again, we're doing a sort of Q&A today. So we're going to be asking Egan a bunch of questions and he'll be answering them. But if you, the students, have any questions for Egan, make sure that you're putting them in the Q&A box down below. There's an option for Q&A. Once we get through our questions, you guys can ask Egan some questions as well. So keep that in mind. All right, but I will share my screen here and we will get started. So before we really get into it, Egan, for those of us in chat who might not know, can you tell us a little bit about Fortnite and what the game is, what are the main goals, and maybe what the genre of game is, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, of course. So Fortnite is a battle royale game. So 100 players dropping into a map, big map, a lot of different POIs. The goal of the game, of course, being to be the last man standing, as in all battle royales. What really sets Fortnite apart from all the other types of battle royales is building. As you go around the map, most things on the map are destructible. You're able to break them to gain resources, which enable you to build your own structures, which adds an entire new depth to fights and how those play out, and massively increases the skill cap. So there's a lot of variation, a lot of skill, and a lot of practice needed to really do well at Fortnite, as well as a lot of strategy, understanding what fights to take, where to move on the map as the zones pull closer and closer together. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, great introduction. And yeah, let's head on to the first question, which are, what are your best placements in playing Fortnite?
So on screen, you can see a couple of different placements that I put up on there. I've won 2 tournaments, the Hype Cup and the Raise the Cup tournament. One was squads, one was trios. Both of those, like, not as big tournaments, but winning them was pretty fun. I remember the Hype Cup, we had to start like 40 minutes late, and then I had to take a call in the middle of the tournament, and then somebody else's internet died. It was a whole mess, but we still ended up being able to win that one. The Raise the Cup tournament was really, really fun, because I remember our first game, we had 43 kills. Yeah, we were really just going at it. My placement that I'm proudest of is in the bottom left over there. I got 34th in a finals in FNCS solos, and that was enough to make me qualify to heats automatically because top 50 qualified. And I'm very, very proud of that. That was probably like the peak of my like pro career. Really being able to place that well in a solo tournament and do it by myself, as opposed to potentially being able to say that I got carried by teammates. And then my most recent good placement, and the one that ended up winning me the most money, is in the top left, 8th in Plavius Collegiate for the entirety of Western North America. That was really just a very satisfying placement. I was very, very happy. I was shooting for top 15, and then 8th place I was very happy with, especially
Dude, you're making money at playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. We go into more
smile on your face, man. It's just like, are you kidding me? That's awesome.
It's so much fun knowing that you can make money from a hobby like this. That, like, I just went in, I started playing Fortnite because it was fun, and then it ended up being a situation where I could actually get money from it. But yeah, so these are probably some of my best placements.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I see that, you know, some of them are squads, some of them are trios and solos. Is there a type of tournament or game mode that you prefer the most generally, or?
I like both trios and solos. I'm very partial to solos because it's kind of a situation where you're only relying on yourself. And so it can become very easy to get into the headspace of if you're with teammates better than you, then you feel like you're getting carried by them. And if you're with teammates worse than you, then you feel like everything's on you and you have a bunch of responsibility. Um, while learning to deal with that is just like a very good growth thing in terms of personality and being able to work as a team, it's also kind of nice to sometimes just play solos and know that like, hey, everything that I do is on me. I can't let anybody else down, so I can just let go, have fun, enjoy the game, and have a good time. But I also love trios just because then you've got two buddies in the call with you. You're having a good time. You're making jokes. You're keeping it light, and it doesn't get too monotonous.
Yeah, good points. Awesome. So who's the highest profile gamer that you've ever faced, and how did you do?
So I play on NA West as opposed to most of you guys playing on NA East. So the pros that I go against aren't like Booga, Tifu, or all those people in different times. But yes, Epic Whale, he's on Western North America. This is a clip from a wager against some of the top like pros on Western North America. That was Dog. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's less known, but he is like, I think like top 10 in Western North America. But I've played against Arkham, Epic, Rex, making 40R Storm. 40R Storm comes from way back, but he's also very highly ranked in Western North America. I've killed Arkham a couple times. He's definitely killed me more than I've killed him for sure. He's 100% better. But we've gone up against each other a couple times, especially back in the old squad days. And then, like I wrote lower, my practice partners that I'll usually just like run PGs with or sit in calls with, they got 8th in the most recent FNCS Grand Finals. I've been playing trios with them since forever. I've largely retired from the competitive scene as of right now, like, or really this last summer is when I began to step away. But they've been continuing to excel and get better and better. And it's always great to hop in calls with them and still run a couple of 1v1s occasionally.
Nice. So some of these pro players that you've faced against, do you approach things any differently if you recognize their name or you know you're going against them?
No, because the thing is you should be putting your all into every fight, or like you should be playing every fight in the same way. There is a certain degree of when you start fighting a player, you can gauge their skill, and then maybe that can determine your level of aggression. For example, if it's a player that you really feel that you would have the upper hand in a fight, you might want to play a little bit more aggressive to make sure that that fight ends quickly to reduce the amount of third-party opportunities for other people. Because if you drag it out too long, more people are going to be able to show up and start third-partying. But in general, like every single fight, I approach the same way. I play with largely the same amount of precaution. I don't really like the thing is, I've gone up against these people so many times that like even though I know that they're better than me, it's kind of like it's just another day. Like it's just another fight. There's nothing special about them inherently. It's just do your best in the fight. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. Either keep playing the game if you win, or go next if you don't.
I like that. Awesome.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's a philosophy actually that that a lot of like top players across the spectrum of whatever sport, they talked about like Michael Jordan was one of the most ferocious practice players, and he's just like, it doesn't matter if you're lacing it up, get after it. Pete Carroll in football talks about that it's just it becomes a habit right there, and it translates over to there's a saying, I don't know if it was Seneca, one of the Greek philosophers, how you do anything is how you do everything. Exactly. And your attitude of like, try your best, bring your A game, right? Like play for keeps, that type of thing. That's one of the things about what we're trying to do with our Epic program, is to sort of imbue the idea that character matters, and show up in life. Right? Don't just do your best at Fortnite. Do your best at in having good relationships with your parents, or do your best in being a good person, in a friend or whatever. And so, because it translates over. Do you find, Egan, that ultimately the top players have high character?
To be completely honest, some of them don't. But Like the majority of them do, especially the people that are working their way up. It can be easy to gain a little bit of arrogance when you're at the top of the game and have been for so long. And so that's something that you have to be careful of as well, because then the people that are putting in the work, that are hungry to improve, will eventually catch up if you get too complacent. But yeah, some of the best people that I've ever met are the people that started out not being ranked, started out not knowing that much about the game, but then put in the work. Like Grim that I talked about, he's a younger friend of mine. I found him way back in Chapter 2, Season 3. He had next to no competitive placements to his name, but he was a good fighter. I took him under my wing. I helped teach him like game sense, and he had already the knowledge of fighting, and then he began to improve, and he was hungry. He put in the hours, he put in the work, and he always had a good attitude, and that's how he got to where he is today.
That's great. And that, like I said, that's a life skill, whether you want to learn how to play guitar or you want to, learn how to fly an airplane, like these things transfer. That's great. Thanks, Egan.
Yeah, really good insights there. Thank you. Now, all these pro players that we're talking about, are there any specific qualities that all of them share or that makes for an elite player in Fortnite?
Yeah, I wanted to list three things that I think are super, super necessary to do well in Fortnite. The first one is game sense. You need to understand the mechanics of the game. You need to understand like what are the different weapons that you have at your disposal? What are the different use cases for each weapon? Pull out times, damage numbers. You need to know how to move with zones. For example, I talk about dead side and I show a photo of a circle that's closing. If you notice the side of the zone, like the smaller circle that is like further away from the edge of the bigger circle, there are more players there because as the zone moves, a larger portion of the old zone is being forced into that section of the new zone. So if you're in this mid-game type position and you want to avoid fights, you want to move to the back side of the zone where there are less players, you're less likely to get stuck into a fight or get beamed by somebody who's sitting in a box waiting for you. That's called doing a dead side rotate, and that's just one of the key elements of game sense that you'll need to be able to perform well in these competitive lobbies. Another thing that you need are mechanics. If you can't win a fight, then you're not going to do well because eventually, even if you are really good at rotating dead side, you're really good at avoiding those fights, eventually someone's going to find you. And if they can tell that you don't have good mechanics, they're going to want to take that fight. So you not only need to like know what fights to take, when to avoid them, how to not put too many resources towards them. But if you are put into a situation where you need to fight or you're low on resources and you need a elimination to be able to get more resources to continue, you got to be able to win those. So mechanics, building, aim, those are super, super important. And then also an unshakable mentality. The way most of these tournaments work is it's not like a single game and then that's it. You need to be able to go after having a really disappointing game one, you need to be able to go into game two with a mindset that you're going to do great this tournament. You can't be like, oh, started poorly, that's over, that's it. Maybe instead of starting poorly, you have 3 great games and then you absolutely do terribly game 4. You can't be like, oh, the streak's over, like, oh, it's terrible. Like you need to be able to go into each game with a fresh mindset, ready to try your hardest, regardless of what's been going on in the previous games.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've said it before. I'll say it again, but mentally resetting, just sort of going back to your meditation or in between place, in between rounds, just to sort of, again, not lose your mentality in between games or let things get to you. And those mental resets, avoiding tilt, avoiding burnout, all those types of, that type of content we have in the Epic Esports program as well. We have lessons and lectures on these different ideas as well.
Well, and look, the truth of the matter is I know that a lot of people have heard this before, but the fact of the matter is the person who can stay poised, calm, play their own game, this is a life skill right there. Going on tilt, you look at road rage, you look at freaking out, you look at dealing with people who just give shenanigans and grief. Like this is something that if you can just stay collected on the inside, and it's way easier said than done, but I love the idea that you guys talk about cultivating that in Fortnite, because I'm sure there's people who just want to smash their computer screen at different point. They get so emotionally charged up, and something doesn't go their way, right? Is that kind of probably like one of the things, is that just, sometimes you just take tough shots, you got to get back up and keep moving forward? Is that like a severely critical skill to have?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've learned is that no game is ever really over, because there's been so many games where even like off spawn, somebody beats me to my drop. I have to take a back route. I have next to no loot, and it looks like I'm just going to do terribly that game. But then I find a kill. I find somebody who's like unprepared for me to show up, or maybe I find two people fighting. I'm able to maybe even steal the loot that's left behind after the person who wins the fight leaves. There's so many different ways that you can bring yourself back into a game. And if you have a mentality that's easily shaken, then you're never going to be able to get to that place to bring a game back, because you're already going to have given up. If you give up before it's over, then there's no real way to come and actually find that success. The only way to find that success is to believe that it's there and to work towards it.
It's I mean, and once again, this is funny, but it's like Winston Churchill, World War II, never, ever, ever give up. And that was his message, and we're talking about, so it's funny how what you're saying is not just wisdom inside of Fortnite, but it's life wisdom.
Certainly, many life skills to be learned from gaming and games. So Egan, when did you actually start playing Fortnite?
So I started playing all the way back at the end of the first season 2, like the last week of it, and I only started really playing in season 3. I actually tried the game back in like season 1, way when it was super, super early, because I heard about it from a couple of friends. I tried a solo match. I'd never played a battle royale ever before, so I landed on this one spot in the middle of nowhere, grabbed a gun, and immediately died when somebody else found me. And I was like, this game, no, it's not fun. Uninstalled it. But then all my friends kept talking about how fun it was, so I decided, hey, I'll give it another shot. They seem to be having a good time. Started again at the end of season 2, and then really got into it in season 3, playing with all my buddies. And then as they started dropping away and me being as competitive as I am, I decided to make it more of a hobby, to put a little bit more time into it. And then especially, I had some medical issues that took me out of cross country in high school my senior year, which meant that all of a sudden I had a very significant amount of time on my hands. And so then I was like, hey, I'm already like, I want to be competitive in something. I used to really be competitive in running, and then Fortnite was kind of like a hobby that I do in my free time. Now I'll be competitive in Fortnite. And so that's how it really started for me.
Awesome. You've been playing for a while, right? Was there any specific meta that stands out to you that you enjoyed the most?
By the way,
Or
the
season?
screen share ended.
Yep, I can jump
Okay.
back.
Gotcha. I think my favorite meta is probably Chapter 2, Season 3. It was that ocean-themed one where they took out the pump, put in the charge, flooded the entire map. That was so much fun to me because there was such a huge amount of variation in that season versus the previous season. And so it felt so fresh to me. And then what also really gives it a special place in my mind is that was the season where it was FNCS solos, and I performed, I think, at my peak. So I kind of look back with rose-tinted glasses, but I remember dropping at Fortilla, bottom left side of the map. There was a NPC there that would drop a mythic burst rifle and a chug jug that would recharge every 60 seconds, as well as there being numerous pepper boxes, which is very, very useful mobility, and also a vault where you could grab the launch pad out from underneath using a little bit of a glitch. So every single game I'd be going into endgame with like a chug jug that recharges every 60 seconds, a really, really great assault rifle, bunch of heals, bunch of mobility. So I was just stacked going into every game, and it was so much fun. And then also one of the things that I realized is the Chug Jug recharges faster than the zone can kill you for the first 2 zones, which meant I was able to fully avoid mid-game fights by just staying in zone.
Oh,
Because
geez.
nobody else would want to be there. But it was just me and my Chug Jug farming up materials, taking my time. But yeah, that was a really fun season for me.
That seems pretty good. Awesome. So have you played in any professional leagues within Fortnite?
I have, kind of. So there aren't really professional leagues in the same sense as like there might be, I think LCS for League, or I'm not sure, is it RLCS for Rocket League? There isn't really a league like that where teams can put forward, or like organizations can put forward a team and then they all compete. Because Fortnite pretty much is purely online opens and you play with whoever you want and you win by doing well, not by necessarily like having any credentials to get in. The only league that I would say that kind of requires credentials is PlayVS, which is the collegiate league for Fortnite. That's what I've been competing in all of last year. In the fall season, they only had trios, and that was hosted on NA East. We still managed to get 22nd, playing on 90 ping. And then this last spring season, they had solos on NA West, which is what I got 8th in that I showed in the beginning. And then also we played trios on East again and got 24th.
Nice. Good standings.
I'm pretty happy with them. And
And
so, yeah.
did you make any money from it?
I did indeed. We already touched on that in the beginning. My biggest prize pool being the $700 that I won from PlayVS Solos. There was also an AVGL, which is another collegiate league. They had a duo tournament. My friend Zass and I, you can see that he placed 7th right above me. We're both teammates. We both play for UCLA, and we've played trios together in open events all the time. But he and I played together, and we got 5th. That got us $375 each. PlayVS Trios back in the fall had a larger prize pool, so us getting 22nd got us $1,000 as a trio, so $333 for me. I got $250 from making FNCS solo heats. I did not play that well that day, frankly. I didn't even get into my last game because I was too busy reviewing the game before that I'd done poorly to see if there was anything that I could do to improve my final one, and then I missed Q. But you know what? Just by qualifying for heats, I still managed to get $250. And then also PlayVS Trios this last spring season, 24th, got us $100 each. So
Nice. Yeah, the immediate reflection maybe costed you there.
yeah. But that's one of the things that you can do and should do in these custom type lobbies where the same people are in each game. Since everybody, it's the same people, you know people are dropping in specific areas. You know that people likely have the same loot paths, especially if it worked out for them in the previous match. They're probably going to go for it again. So you're able to go into the game replays and figure out like, okay, if this person looted here, this person looted here, this person looted here, they missed this little area in the middle. Obviously, my strategy hasn't been working out too great. Let me try this out. So probably should have been a little bit more mindful of the time, but that is something that people will do in custom lobbies.
Yeah, and that's interesting. The sort of metagaming that you mentioned there, and like looking at people's past games to consider what they might do in the future.
Yep.
Does that happen often, you say, in your matches? Do you usually get a chance to do that? And did you end up doing that with any of the pro players that you mentioned earlier, maybe that you play against a lot?
Yeah, there's like, especially one of the main ways that people practice Fortnite is through scrim servers, where these like a bunch of pros will come in together and then just play against each other in custom matches. And people, like, for example, if you are fighting another team off spawn and they beat you, then you can go into replays and you look at, okay, where did they land? How did they loot? Why were they able to beat us? How can we counterplay that? And potentially, how can we learn from that and use it ourselves in the future? Because odds are 99% of the time when you're playing in an open tournament, you haven't gotten to the finals yet, you might come against them, maybe you won't. And so sometimes you can just use the strategy if it's clearly better. However, if you are both good teams, you'll most likely both get to finals, and the finals lobbies are going to look very much like the scrim lobbies that you've been practicing. And so knowing how to fight a specific team is going to be important. Like, you develop like rival teams that you go up against all the time. And you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't study their gameplay to figure out how to beat them.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of the analysis and reflection that Egan's talking about here is a big part of building productive gaming, right? We don't want students to be playing Fortnite mindlessly on autopilot. Instead, they should be having set goals in mind and reflect on all the play that they're doing so that they can learn how to improve in their gameplay, but also in the choices that they make in the matches. So productive gaming is huge, and it's very important when you start competing in esports. So, Egan, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself. Are you going to college? If so, what college, and what major are you going for?
Yeah, of course. So I go to UCLA. So if you look at the picture, I'm in the blue, and then my buddy in the red, he goes to USC. Of course, our two schools have a little bit of a rivalry. So when we both found out where we were going, we decided to have a little bit of a photo there.
Nice.
Yeah, I go to UCLA and I study mathematics of computation, usually just called comp math. It's a mix between computer science, so there's a lot of programming, a lot of computer science classes that I take, but also like pure mathematics. So I take like analysis, like real and imaginary slash complex, and a bunch of different other math classes that I think help round me out because I plan on going into industry to use computer science to like model data and whatnot. And having those higher level math classes allow me to use a bit more advanced math in creating those models.
That's really sick.
So Egan, there's a lot of people on this call right now, and they might not understand that gaming can be a gateway into computer science. And did you sort of have you always played video games, and did they have anything to do with awakening this sort of love for programming for you?
Oh, for sure. I started playing video games from when I was very young. I started with Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga. I don't know how many of you. It may be a bit beyond your time for the people that are in here, but yeah, I loved that game. I had no idea how to play it for the first like 3 months, but it started like growing into different games, especially Minecraft was a huge game in my childhood. I started programming when my parents recommended it to me back in 6th grade. Khan Academy actually put out a online like little widget. I started doing that. And then one of the things that really got me into programming is making Minecraft mods. I took a little course over the summer and I started making mods for Minecraft. I would play it by myself. I would play it with my friends. And it was just so much fun to me that I could now this game that I loved and had played for so many years, I could add in new things, add in new content. And then like I started making my own games. I started doing like all kinds of things. Like they're so intertwined, computer science and programming, especially if you have a passion for gaming or if you're first getting into the scene, because a really great way to like create a proof of concept for different programming ideas is to just structure a game around it. For example, when I was trying to teach myself physics, I made a game where you build a rocket and then it would actually like simulate trying to fly that rocket. So you could make some pretty wacky rockets and it would fly really wacky because it was an accurate physics simulation. But that was like how I taught myself physics, by making a game for physics. Then I wanted to teach myself how to render things in 3D. So then I made a game where it was a 3D platformer. And so like every single thing that I wanted to learn, you can make a game around it. And that was the way that I made it fun for myself, as opposed to just having to build tech demo after tech demo after tech demo.
That's great. And for those of you who are interested in following in Egan's path, you should know that there's still room to join the Fortnite teams. We still have open space, so tell a friend. If you're not already signed up for the great season ahead, please go ahead and do that. Just contact your teacher, available through SpinBridge or the Mastery Coding website. We still have space for you. But in addition, we have a game development course that is available for the Epic family. That is it's awesome. I mean, Richie, you built the course right there. So you understand, the idea. For those of you who are interested, you love Fortnite and maybe you want to noodle around, maybe you want to learn how to do this, learn how to code, learn some programming. We now have the ability for you to sort of put your toes in that water.
For sure, definitely. Anybody interested in learning how to code or make games, please look for the Game Development Foundations course available through Epic. It's really exciting and it's a lot of fun, and it's a great partner to our Pathway Esports season because the platform is the same. So as you may know, our educational esports season, you'll have lectures and quizzes to do as you go throughout it. And you can do the coding on the very same platform. So it's a great game and make package. All righty. So our next question here is, how were you involved with esports at your school?
So fun little photo of me wearing UCLA esports jersey, taking the L.
It's a nice jersey.
It is a really nice jersey. We're changing the design this year, so I'm excited to buy one of my own. That was a lender. But I compete for UCLA esports. I'm on their varsity Fortnite team. And so even now, even though I've largely stepped away from like the competitive scene, I don't do many tournaments outside of collegiate. I still do all the collegiate tournaments. Like even this last Wednesday, played in a tournament every single Wednesday I do. And so it's still fun to compete for them, to be part of a team, to be surrounded by a bunch of other people that are also passionate about esports. Even if it's for different games, we always find something that we can connect on, and it's a lot of fun.
That's very cool. Do you know if your school is offering esports scholarships at this time?
As of right now, we aren't. We are still very, very young as an esports program. The esports program is only 3 years old. Fortnite only even got added last year. But we are definitely working in that direction. I think it's going to be in the near future. We're building our relationships with UCLA Rec and management, and I think it'll be something in the near future, hopefully.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious about that. Cool. So, Egan, what would you say are the most important aspects of team-based Fortnite?
So I listed some of them off. I think one of the most important things is good communication. Everybody's going to refer to them as good comms. Nobody says the full word communication in the gaming space. But comms are super, super important. There, you can err on either side of the spectrum. You might have too little comms, where you just aren't communicating with your teammates. You find a team, you start running at them. Your teammates have no idea what you're doing. Now you're fighting 3 people and you're entirely on your own. Or maybe you have a purple shotgun and you find a blue one, so you don't pick it up, but your teammates are running around with gray shotguns. But since you don't say anything, they don't benefit from that. So you need to be able to say enough communication, but you can also err on the side of too many or not important ones, where you're just calling out information that isn't actually relevant to gameplay. Of course, you can have jokes and banter with your friends, but for example, if you're in a fight, you need to know what information is important for your teammates to know and what information might just be clogging up the communication pathways. Because if you're saying something, somebody else isn't saying something, or maybe couldn't hear something that somebody else is saying. So knowing what to say, when to say it, very, very important. Good vibes, I think, is also very important. Much like I said, you need an unshakable mentality. If you have a bad mentality, it's very, very easy to drag your teammates down. Because if one person is just depressed in a group, it's very difficult for the other people to stay positive. So having good vibes as a team, having positivity, if you're positive, it can help pull somebody else up from being in a bit more of a negative area. And you're always going to perform better when you're all positive and you're all trying your best and having a good time. And then also finally, a lack of selfishness. Sometimes staying alive yourself, or getting more loot yourself isn't necessarily what's best for the team, and being able to recognize that. There are different roles in trios. For example, I was not usually the main fighter. In the trios that I played with, I would usually call out rotations, call out different game decisions as an IGL. We'll get into game rules later, I'm sure, during this course. But whenever I found a very powerful shotgun, I would always immediately just give it to the best fighter on the team. Even though I would enjoy having that shotgun, I recognize that they're probably going to use it better than I would be able to use it. In the same way, sometimes you're able to sacrifice yourself to make sure that your teammates stay up, as opposed to just staying alive yourself for a little bit longer before you all get wiped out. Having a lack of selfishness and putting the team's performance before your own personal performance in the team, very, very important to teamwork.
Yeah, I think those are some great points. And tilt can be contagious within a team, but good vibes can also be contagious in a team. So try and keep it light and have fun with everybody. And Egan, you kind of mentioned this earlier, or you kind of just mentioned this, the fact that in a trios, there are often roles. And we do get more into roles and specifically what they are and how you can fill those roles throughout the esports season. But really briefly, if you can just give an introduction for those in the chat who might not know, what are the basic roles on a trios team?
For the most part, there are going to be 3 different roles, and then kind of a 4th role-ish that can be passed around however you decide. There are IGLs, supports, and fraggers. IGLs are in-game leaders. That's what IGL stands for. And they're usually the people that make big decisions. They're the people that make the decisions of where are we going to land? How are we going to rotate out after we land? And then based on where the zone pulls, they call it, okay, we're going to use this mobility item for this rotation, or we're going to run through here and then go there, etc. Like they're doing the game sense for the team. But then there's also fraggers. Those are usually the players that are very, very good at fighting. Having game sense isn't as important for them because the IGL will usually be making the macro decisions, but they still need to have game sense in terms of how to take fights. But yes, they're usually the best fighter. And then support players can fill a variety of roles. Sometimes they can help the IGL with decision making. Sometimes they're also better fighters, and so they tag along with the fragger in terms of like certain pinches or different like planes of attack that you might do as a team. So usually the 2 of them, like support and fragger, usually work together pretty tightly. And then there's also kind of the 4th role that can be passed around of Tarper, which is in endgame, the IGL will usually be the one making the calls on what layer to be on, whether you need to go high ground if you want to be building your own tarp, or tunnel on mid ground, or if you want to be on low ground. But the Tarper is the person who actually gets out in front, builds the tunnel, makes sure that the fragger and the other person who's not tarping have a pathway to move through consistently, so that the other 2 are free to look for people to find some eliminations, some refreshes, and then be able to, after getting those refreshes, make it all the way back up to the front of zone without being stuck in the back, without being trapped, because there's already a full tarp for them.
Awesome, Egan. Thank you. Thank you for that overview. So how important between all of these roles is communication in Fortnite, and what are some of the most common things that you are communicating?
Like I said on the last one, communication is everything. If you aren't communicating as a team, you're not going to perform well as a team. One of the things that's very important to communicate is how much of each kind of material you have. In early game, communicating that maybe you don't have a lot of metal or you don't have a lot of brick can help the IGL make a decision on what route to take to the next zone in order to find a location where you can farm up some metal to top yourself off, or to go through a patch where there's a bunch of brick. Because you should be going into endgame full on every single type of material. And it's the IGL's like responsibility to maximize that, or to make that as possible as they can. But the IGL won't know to get you those materials unless you tell them. Or unless it's like a part of your loot route. But so communicating how much of each type of material is super important. Also in endgame, your tarper is going to be wanting to build their tarp out of hard materials, brick or metal, because it's harder for other teams to spray through or to break into to find kills on your team. And so calling out how much of each type of material lets the tarper know how much materials they have at their disposal to spend. Maybe they'll spend some more materials to make it a safer tarp. Maybe they'll realize that you're kind of low on materials and therefore will use a little bit less to make it safer, or to at least like be able to go further with the materials that they have. Also, sightings of enemy teams. Knowing where teams are around you is super, super important. You don't want to get separated. You don't want to get jumped. So if you see anybody, everybody on the team should be aware of that so that you can coordinate your movement together with that in mind. Also, how many heals you're carrying. Usually in trios, you want one person to be carrying what we call white heals, which is going to be med kits or bandages, something that'll heal damage beneath shield. And then the other two players should usually be carrying 2 types of shield at minimum. But so coordinating that is important, because if all of you only have shield and then one of you gets hit for a lot of damage, then you're going to be stuck with only like 50 white health, even if you have full shield, versus just making sure that like maybe one person is carrying 3 medkits. Then you're in a pretty good position. But you don't need everybody carrying medkits either, because you'd rather have shield for those situations, because shield is the first type of health to go. Again, I mentioned this like extra loot that you can't carry, but others might need. If you find another good shotgun, if you find another good assault rifle, just call it out. Just say, hey, blue AR on me. Hey, blue shotgun on me. And then another teammate might be like, oh, I need that. I'll just mark it for me and I'll pick it up real quick. That'll make sure that your team has better loot going into endgame. And then just good rotations for next zone. Usually IGL is going to be the one that's making that decision anyways, but IGLs aren't infallible. And also IGLs can take advice, or they can take suggestions. So maybe you have a really good idea and you're pretty sure it's going to work. Just call it out to the IGL. It'll be their decision whether or not you go with it, but maybe it'll help them out. Maybe it's something that they didn't consider. So communicating rotations is also a good idea.
Yeah, really great list, really great points. So next we have up, what life lessons have you learned from gaming or Fortnite?
Life lessons there's so many to learn. One of the first things is like I said, I've always played video games and I would always watch esports. Definitely started watching it more once I started participating in it myself. I would watch these games, especially in like Chapter 1, Season 3, Chapter 1, Season 4. I would watch these videos of Ninja, of Myth, of these pros, and I would just think like, wow, I can't believe people are able to be that good at this game. I can't believe that people are able to be at that upper echelon of gaming. But then I began putting in the time, I began putting in the practice, and I realized it's achievable. These people that I like, these like top 1, top 2 players like Arkham, Epic Whale, etc., that I viewed as so untouchable, like eventually you begin to realize like, hey, they're just a person like me that also put in the work. And by putting in the work myself, it's possible for me to get to that level. But then there's also like, you have to be careful. Life balance is so important. If you let a video game completely take over your time, and you start spending less time with friends, you start spending less time with your family, you're not getting outside, you're not exercising, maintaining that physical health, it can be bad for your physical and your mental health. So making sure that you find a balance between gaming and other responsibilities like school and relationships, that's when you get the most satisfaction out of gaming, because you can also burn yourself out. If you're playing too many hours a day, then even though you continue to play those many hours, you aren't even enjoying it as much. So making sure that gaming stays a hobby, something that you can enjoy and not a responsibility, that's super important. But at the end of the day, it's so cool the people that you can meet and the friends that you can make by pursuing a passion. The photo on the left is me with 3 of my friends. The person on the far left is Zas, who's my teammate at UCLA, and I already actually knew him from my high school. But the other 2 people, the person directly on my left, his name is Nick. He lived super far away from me, like way northern California. I live in Southern California. And then the person on the right of me lives in New York. But we all were able to come together at DreamHack Anaheim. And we'd known each other for months online and finally meet in person. And it was just so cool to be able to hang out like that, to meet all these people, to find all these different opportunities. At one point, I even went to New York to visit the guy on the right and a couple of his friends that I had also known. And it's like, I never would have met these people and formed those relationships without gaming. And so it's just super cool, like the opportunities that comes with it, and the friendships that you can make when you're working together towards a common goal.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually have two comments on that. Number one, which is in terms of the friends and the community. Last year we had a really awesome Epic community, and the amount of collaboration, friendship, the community aspect is really big in gaming, and I'm really excited to have a community once again with all of the new students that are here, and for the old students to be returning and coming back to join us. I'd also like to point out the balance, which is, balancing your health and your life and your wellness with gaming as well. Egan, I know that you were a big proponent last year of stretching. And at the start of your practices, you would stretch and have all the students make sure they stretch, get active, and are prepared to take part in, 1 hour, 2 hour game block. All right. So what Fortnite meta, oh, there you go, was your favorite and why?
Yeah, I just it's what I talked about earlier. I think I included a video clip in this
Might
from
take a second to load, but
yeah, from solo FNCS. This really is why I loved this season. If you look at the video, the chaos of it. So I threw crash pad, got an elimination out of the air as I was flying. Find another potential like elimination here. I crack his shield, so I start playing aggressive, but he moves on. I realize he's running next to me. I get the wall, fully box him up, get the elimination, get the materials, and keep moving. This was just such a chaotic season because of all the mobility, because of crash pads, because of shockwaves, because of all the different mythics. And I just loved it so much. That was my signature move, to throwing a crash pad and then looking for a charge shotgun elimination midair. I did that like a couple of times throughout the tournament, and it's so satisfying each time. I loved it.
I'll play it one more time for everybody. I don't know if Zoom is sometimes laggy, so make sure everyone can see it.
I just saw the builds being thrown out, so I knew there had to be a player in there somewhere.
Very, very cool. Awesome. So next question is, what exciting career opportunities are available in the world of esports that you've seen in your time being here?
There are so many different careers. You could be a coach, you could be a team manager, an analyst, content creation, video editing, graphic design, being one of the players. It's all like, there's so many different layers to making the esports scene work. Coaches are necessary for making sure that players are in the right headspace and able to analyze their gameplay and improve. Team managers make sure that teams are able to meet contractual necessities, advertisements, sponsorships, get to tournaments on time. They make sure that the players get done what they need to get done. Analysts help coaches by really looking at gameplay and seeing what needs to be improved. Content creation, one of the big ways to bring in money in the world of esports, building an audience, especially easy around competitive games where people are like able to look at you. If you are a pro, or maybe you're just entertaining and you play this game, then people are going to want to watch you play it. So content creation is great. Video editing, these pros want to create their own content, but oftentimes the top tier pros are so focused on their craft and on their game that they don't really have time to build that much content. So having a video editor or being a video editor for a pro is also a great way to help create content for them. And then graphic design, like marketing, posts, online, social media. Another part of content creation is having those graphic designers. So there are so many more that I'm sure that I didn't even think of listing. But the world of esports is super complex, and there's a bunch of different career opportunities in there for you.
Yep, great point. And I just like to mention that all the students participating in our upcoming season will have a chance to choose one of these different career paths and explore it a little bit. We had some awesome capstone projects last year. Students were editing their own montages and submitting them, and they were really cool. So we look forward to those capstone projects again this year. All righty, so we have reached the end of our planned questions. I think we have about 10 minutes to answer some student questions, Egan. So in the questions and answer box, we'll start going through them a little bit. The first one here is from Anonymous. What is your favorite skin?
The skin that I am currently rocking almost always is called Flatfoot. Kind of like in general, you find that a lot of competitive players use thinner skins because it enables them to have a better view of the screen, because the skin will take up less of their screen. So she's one of the skinniest skins, and I just think that it's a nice skin. So that's probably my current favorite one.
Awesome. Cool. Do you use PC, and do you think it's a better way to play?
I personally use PC. I started on PC. I never actually like owned a console. My dad is super into computers, so when I started getting into gaming a lot and I stopped playing on his computer, I got my own computer as a birthday gift. And then with money that I won from Fortnite, I actually built a better computer about a year ago. But I don't think it's necessarily like a better way to play. I think if you really want to be at the top tier of competitive play, then you should probably be on PC. But there, especially with newer generation consoles, or even on the last generation consoles, there's still a lot of potential for being able to be competitive. There was one guy in my cohort, I'm a returning coach last year. He started out on PS4, then moved to PS5, and then moved to PC. But he was a hardworking player on every single stage and performed well no matter what he was playing on. And so I think that you can overcome platform differences if you work hard enough. Of course, you'll always be at some level of disadvantage, but it's like you can work through that, especially at the level that we will be playing at. And then also there are like, even in official tournaments, there's like a console champions cup coming up. So if you want to compete against just console players, then you'll have that opportunity. So there's opportunities for esports no matter what you're playing on.
Very well said. We have a question from Easton. How will we do it as a team, and will we be able to play with other people on the team?
Yeah. You wanna? I can. Let's field it. But we will be playing trios in our season. In the beginning, you're going to be randomly assigned teams. As I get to, like, as a coach, I will be getting to understand you guys, knowing different relative skill levels, being able to get to know where you are at as players. So you're going to be playing with random teammates. But then once the regular season begins, you're going to be assigned a team. You're going to be sticking with them, improving together as we practice, all the way up until postseason, where you'll be competing against all the other teams that have been formed in a couple of tournament style games. And so you will have teammates and you'll be playing together in a trio.
Exactly. Yeah. Very, very well said. Let's see if there's some more here. Does it take a lot of money to get into esports and Fortnite?
No, I mean, like we kind of touched on with the what do you play on? Like you can get into esports and Fortnite as long as whatever device you're on runs Fortnite. It doesn't really matter where you're coming from. I think that if you really start getting into the upper echelon of like pro play, then you're going to want to start maybe investing a little bit more into your hardware. But I mean, like I was playing on a PC, sure, but a pretty mediocre to cheap one at that, until I made enough money from the game to be able to buy a better PC. And so like it can feel itself if you put in the work.
Nice. Let's see. Matthew has a question here. What do you do when you don't have contact with your teammate, or you aren't able to communicate?
That can be difficult. It's real hard to play on a team with someone that you can't communicate with. Or if you mean like if you have a teammate that you lose contact with, that can also be difficult. I've certainly drifted apart from some teammates of my own in the past. Life moves on, friendships move on, especially if you aren't seeing them every day in person. And that's kind of a bit of a reality of when you meet people online. You don't know if they're going to stick around forever, and you can't guarantee that. But one of the things that I found is that most oftentimes players will drift away, or teammates will drift away if you put the game before your friendship. And so as long as you're taking the time out of your day, or just making time to build those relationships, to just have fun with them, and not only practicing with them or only like doing scrims with them, then you'll be fine. You'll be able to maintain that relationship. But I will say it will be nearly impossible for you to play competitively with somebody if they, for example, don't have a mic and you aren't able to communicate at all. Communication is super, super important.
Great points. We have a question from Trenton here. Any more tips on how to fight an uneven fight?
The thing is, like, you can't go into the mindset of knowing that it's an uneven fight. I kind of talked about this earlier when you're facing like pros. You have to go into each fight just like any other fight. It's not like you have an underhand and then all of a sudden there's like an underhand way to play that'll suddenly make you do well. You just have to try your best in each fight, know what you have available, and do your best to take advantage of it. For example, if somebody's coming at you and they have a shotgun and then you only have an AR, maybe the best thing to do is to try and keep a distance between the two of you so that you can use your AR at range and they won't really be able to utilize that shotgun. This happens all the time off spawn. Or another situation, maybe you just have a lever and they have a pump. You just have to like play it like you would any other fight. Do your best to win the fight with that lever. You can't use the knowledge that you're at a bit of a disadvantage to like make you start mentally giving up, because you can always win. And you just got to try your best.
Yeah, really good insights. We have Anonymous asking if students are required to enable 2FA in order to participate in the custom lobbies that we make.
I don't think you're required to put in 2FA to participate to participate in custom lobbies, but you probably should enable 2FA in general. 2FA is just a really great way of making sure that you don't get your account hacked. It's not that difficult to set up. But no, I don't believe you'll need to get into custom lobbies.
Awesome. Clover is wondering, how do you know if someone is in a box? Because I always get killed by people in boxes.
The best thing to do is if you see a box, assume somebody's in there. Treat it like somebody's in there. If you operate on the mindset of somebody's not there until I see them there, you're gonna get jumped by people in boxes a lot. Instead, operate on the mindset of somebody is there until I see that they're not there. And so in general, if you're talking about like a normal pup match, if you want to take the fight, go up to the box and maybe start pickaxing the wall from a safe location. I'll go over different ways to approach a box in my cohort, and I'm sure other coaches will do that as well. And if you don't want to fight, then just don't go near the box. As simple as that.
Yeah, good insight there. Just approaching the situation differently, more cautiously, right? I really like that. Now, we are approaching the end of our meeting here today, but I do want to thank everyone for coming out and joining. We have a lot of questions in the chat about enrollments. If you need to get enrolled, be sure that you talk with your Epic teacher. If you think you are enrolled, but you haven't received your welcome package, including the survey, please email us at epicpathwayesports@masterycoding.com if you think you should have received the package, but you have not. Once again, check your student emails for this package, the welcome package. We have sent it out multiple times to everyone that we have on our enrollments. Please do complete it before next Monday and make sure that you attend the kickoff webinar this upcoming Monday, October 18th at 12:30 CST. We'll be talking about the getting started for the season, everything that you need to know, how things are running, and all that fun stuff. So I want to give a big thanks to Egan for joining us here today. Shout out to Alan as well. Thank you for joining us. Any final thoughts?
This was awesome. This was totally awesome. And I really am so excited about the season ahead for everybody. And I know there's just going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait for the tournament too at the end. Egan, how excited are you about the end of your tournament that we throw here?
Oh, I'm very excited. It was so much fun last year being able to watch the different standings and watch the kids I'd taught over the year really go out there and perform, especially the people that came in not being as familiar with the game on how to play competitively, but who learned throughout the year and really used what they learned. And I watched them put it into practice out in the tournament.
Yeah,
Watching
so
the
that's
Bobbies and
something
stuff.
that we saw that a lot of people are not as experienced, but that's okay because you come, you'll learn, you'll grow, you'll get better, you'll have fun, you know, the community. So registration's still open. If you didn't get your welcome survey, make sure you send that email. I will drop it in the chat once again. Or if you still need to register, if you have any questions about that, we're you know, Epic Pathway Esports at masterycoding.com. But I want to thank Egan for his time today. I want to thank our director of academic esports at Epic, Richie Conti. This was really great. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.